I don't know about you, but I fucking love the John Cena show. Hello there, and welcome to the Remark. My name's Martin, and like any good balding overweight wrestling fan who never leaves his couch, I've decided that the best way to pay my respects to the men and women who risk their bodies every week in the squared circle is by picking apart their careers one by one on the internet. This week's episode of the John Cena show started out with John Cena, the titular character, titular meaning he's a giant tit, coming down to the ring to address the actions of the Authority from the previous week. See, the Authority had ended up firing 3 members of John Cena's Survivor Series team, claiming it to be mutiny. And like any good wrestling fan, since they've been gone from TV for a whole week, I've completely forgotten who they are or what they've accomplished. Let's just call them not John Cena, not John Cena, and not Goldberg. But before I continue, I want to mention something that had the internet wrestling community, that's what I call myself and my friends on Skype, aflame with impotent rage. I believe that's actually one of the side effects of my medication. Impotent rage, yes. See, for whatever reason, the powers that be decided to replace one of the staples of Monday Night Raw. Jerry, don't get him too excited or he'll speak at a pitch that only dogs can hear. Lawler. I refuse to call him the king. I'm British. To compare him to the monarchy would be an insult. Not to the monarchy, of course, to him. But anyway, they replaced him with bloody Booker T! I, for one, cannot dig that. Sucker. Booker T, a man whose nonsense catchphrase is something along the lines of Shucky, Ducky, Quack, Quack, Knick, knack, Paddy, whack, give a dog a bone, replacing the eloquence of Jerry Lawler's puppies! 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 Keyboard smash. John Cena suggested that the fans use the hashtag #TheAuthoritySucks in order to force Triple H's hand and bring back the other 3 not John Cenas. Because as we all know, spreading venomous hatred against your employer on social media is the exact way to get their attention and address your problems. He also threatened to go to the Royal Rumble, win the championship, and then leave with it, without defending it. Can you imagine a wrestling product where the champion doesn't defend his title on a regular basis? I, for one, find it very hard to conceive of such a notion. Good thing we have that Brock Lesnar on TV every week, eh? Then there was a John Cena versus Seth Rollins lumberjack match. I just love lumberjack matches. I mean, who doesn't? All your favorite non-superstars standing around the ring doing fuck all, while 2 actual superstars wrestle. It adds an extra layer of suspense because of all the fuck all that the guys around the ring are doing. Seriously, they do fuck all. It's great! I don't know why every match isn't a lumberjack match. I just love lumberjack matches so much! At some point during the lumberjack match, Booker T compared it to Gilligan's Island. It's actually an apt comparison, because just like Gilligan's Island, this match went on way too long, and at some point the Harlem Globetrotters became involved. I think. I could be wrong about that. Meanwhile, Dean Ambrose was being psychoanalyzed by a man who looked like the love child of Will Arnett and Dracula. Hey, ship it. Dracula Arnett then proceeded to pull out a surprisingly large alarm clock, which Dean then stared down for about 5 really awkward minutes. I can only assume that they're building up to that Dean Ambrose versus alarm clock match at WrestleMania. God, I hope it's a lumberjack match! Then we go back to last week and remind ourselves, because again, after 7 days, the average wrestling fan's memory just resets itself, that 2 members of the Exotic Express randomly jumped into the ring and attacked the New Day, only to reveal themselves to be Cesaro and Tyson Kidd. The announcers were quite rightly baffled that Tyson Kidd had put on a disguise, as everyone had already forgotten what he looked like. I should mention that I personally am extremely glad that Raw has been extended to 3 hours of programming. After all, how else would they spend 2 whole hours building up to the potential announcement of Randy Savage's induction into the Hall of Fame? I can only imagine how many announcements of announcements there would be if they expanded to 4 hours. And think of all the lumberjack matches. Meanwhile, Big Show managed to auto-tune his own voice in the middle of cutting a promo.
You don't want competition. The world doesn't want competition.
Bravo! T-Pain would be very proud. No, he wouldn't. T-Pain doesn't care. Big Show spent a good while comparing Roman Reigns to the NBA's New York Knicks, confusing wrestling fans everywhere at the mention of actual sports. Then Roman Reigns came out and told Big Show the story of Jack and the Beanstalk. I'm serious. That's what happened. That was his promo. Honestly, I think a more appropriate analogy would have been Sleeping Beauty. After all, I know that's the fairy tale I reenact whenever there's a Big Show match on TV. still better than Into the Woods. Backstage, The Miz is making all kinds of topical references to the Golden Globes, while Mizdow casually mentions that he has placed surveillance equipment all over The Miz's house, and has been filming him for the last 6 months. I'm sure if you watched the unedited footage of that, it would still be more riveting than Monday Night Raw. Also, what? Then we have a women's wrestling match, which is Oh, just a second, I have to take a piss break. Oh, I don't know what I drank, but much better. Now, where was I? What was I talking about? Oh yes, Paul Heyman came out and talked about Brock Lesnar being the difference between fantasy and reality, causing us all to question, is this the real life? Is this just fantasy? Caught in an F5, no escape from brutality. T-Pain would be proud. No, he wouldn't. T-Pain doesn't care. The Miz then wrestled Jey Uso, while Mizdow continued his successful gimmick of imitating everything The Miz does. I can't wait for Mizdow to break away into singles competition, where he will most likely be imitating a guy who never gets any TV time. Then there was another women's match, where Paige took on... Oh gosh, my bloody bladder again. Just a second. Sorry about this. Okay, back to it. Right. Where was I? Oh, right. Daniel Bryan came out to the ring to announce that, following his previous announcement that he was going to enter the Royal Rumble, he is also planning to win the bloody thing. Thank God, he clarified, because I just assumed he intended to lose. I thought he was just going to run to the ring, jump over the top rope, and eliminate himself and spend the rest of the night celebrating his loss. I wish more wrestlers would spend 2 weeks announcing that they intend to compete in and win matches. It would make things a lot less confusing. Backstage, Brock Lesnar confronted Seth Rollins and told him that the future only starts when he says it does. Well, that would explain why the WWE has been stuck in a time loop for the last 5 years. Bloody Brock Lesnar conquering the space-time continuum. What a scamp. The Ascension came out for yet another squash match where they laid out a tiny Asian man. It's okay though. I have it on good authority that the Asian fellow announced 2 weeks prior to that he intended to lose. So it's fine. Then that naughty pair, Rusev and Lana, addressed the audience, saying,
"An American has a job yet chooses to be insubordinate."
Ah, yes, insubordinate. That word. Yes, of course. Give me a second, I'm just going to check the definition on my phone. Let's see, yes, insubordinate. It's a word that means soon to be featured on Botchamania. Dean Ambrose and Rusev had an impromptu arbitrary match, declared official by Lillian Garcia. Well, of course. There is no higher power than the ring announcer. She could say literally anything, and no matter how ridiculous it was, it would happen. I think that's how Adam Rose happened. Lillian Garcia has far too much power. She must be stopped, no matter the cost. And finally, we had the traditional boring-ass contract signing for the traditional boring-ass Royal Rumble main event between Seth Rollins, Brock Lesnar, and the thing they scraped off Vanilla Ice when he was born. John Cena, sorry. The contract signing ended quite abruptly when actual wrestling broke out on a wrestling show. I mean, talk about absurd. Control your product, Vince McMahon. Moving on to Smackdown, which by the way is now on a Thursday. I think they're trying to keep that under wraps though. Also, the WWE Network is only $9.99 a month. Shh, it's our secret. We started things off with Daniel Bryan heading down to the ring without having to announce his intention to do so beforehand. Crazy. He competed against Corporate Kane, with the ring surrounded by members of the Authority, so it was rather like a lumberjack match, except that the wrestlers surrounding the ring were actually relevant to the product, so it doesn't count. The match ended in a clear-cut, no bones about it, undisputed disqualification. Just what every athlete dreams of after returning from a potential career-killing injury. A victory by technicality. Jerry Lawler made his underwhelming return to SmackDown. When asked if he remembered the very first episode of SmackDown that he and Michael Cole did together, Jerry Lawler said no, he didn't. Starting to see why he was taken off Raw, Jerry Lawler went on to compare Daniel Bryan to the Energizer Bunny. Ah yes, just like that famous incident where the Energizer Bunny's neck was almost broken by the Kool-Aid Man. The parallels are remarkable. Bray Wyatt cut a typically cryptic, or cryptically typic, promo, during which smoke was pouring out from under his hat. Whoever he has living in there must be getting super high and they forgot to put towels under the rim. 420 Bray it, bitch. The Usos and Naomi had a 6-man intergender tag team match against The Miz, Mizdow, and Alicia Fox. If you want to hear my commentary on this match, you can find it exclusively on the WWE app. Not really, I just couldn't think of anything to say. Jerry Lawler gave us another classic jape, in which he said that he once saw a psychiatrist and said he felt like a set of blinds, and the psychiatrist said, "Pull yourself together." Roman Reigns returned to cut a promo with his trademark mild smugness. Doubtlessly, his mild smugness will be what gives him the advantage in the Royal Rumble, and then he'll be very mildly smug about that too. Paul Heyman and Seth Rollins came out to the ring and tried to ignore the sexual chemistry that existed between them for several minutes. Then Paul said something about how Brock Lesnar's victories gave him power, which makes me wonder if this whole thing isn't just Mortal Kombat, and Paul Heyman is Shao Kahn. Wait a minute. This was followed by yet another women's wrestling match between Natalya and... Oh my god, I shouldn't have drunk that 2-liter bottle of water before I came. Big Show gave us his 2 cents on the Royal Rumble match, declaring that there isn't a group of men on the roster that could throw him out of the ring. That would explain why every single Royal Rumble has been won by the Big Show. Every time. Always happens. Every single time. Ever. Totally happened. Sin Cara faced Bad News Barrett with his trademark Botcha Libre style. It's like Lucha Libre, except you fuck up a lot. Sort of style, really. It's just a series of mistakes. It's the wrestling equivalent of an Adam Sandler movie. A number of incoherent words were said by Dean Ambrose, who told us that in school he didn't play well with others. This, he claims, gives him the advantage in the Royal Rumble, as opposed to the 29 other men who will be forming an orderly queue to the ring and politely asking their fellow competitors to kindly jump over the top rope. Daniel Bryan took home the victory in the Smackdown main event 6-man tag. Truly, this made up for all of Kane's stalking, harassment, and of course that horrible neck injury that put Daniel Bryan out of commission for 9 months. Totally paid off. Not disappointing in the least. As SmackDown ended, Triple H came out and countered Daniel Bryan's announcement with an announcement of his own. He announced that a match would be announced for SmackDown, and the match would announce whether Daniel Bryan would be announced as an entrant into the Royal Rumble. The announcers were positively flummoxed by all the announcing that was going on. So it is to be Kane versus Daniel Bryan as the main event on next week's SmackDown, with Daniel's entry into the Royal Rumble on the line. I'm certain on Monday Night Raw, Daniel will announce as to whether he intends to win that match, because otherwise we'll all be left guessing. Well, that's what happened on the John Cena show this week. I'm not John Cena, announcing that I intend to be back next week with more sports entertainment related hijinks. Toodle pip!